Think about your aching feet after a long walk, an apple dropping from a branch, and the moon orbiting our planet. What could possibly connect all three of these?
Well, every single one of those is driven by the exact same thing, gravitational force. Your feet hurt because they're literally holding you up against Earth's pull. That apple drops because the same pull grabs it right out of the air. And the moon? It stays in orbit because that identical force stretches across hundreds of millions of meters of empty space. By the end of this lecture, you're going to completely master this incredible underlying simplicity of nature. We're going to break down the core concept of Newton's universal law of gravitation, the exact math behind it, and how you can apply it to everything from everyday objects to massive astronomical wonders. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. The universal force, from apples to galaxies.
Historically, people didn't realize that the rules governing the night sky were exactly the same as the rules governing the dirt under our feet. It was Sir Isaac Newton who first mathematically linked them. He realized, hey, if gravity can reach the top of an apple tree, it just might extend all the way out to the moon and even the sun. So, conceptually, what actually is this force? Newton's universal law of gravitation tells us that every single particle in the universe attracts every other particle with a force acting along a straight line joining them. Just think about that for a second. Every single particle. You are gravitationally pulling on the screen you're looking at right now, and it is pulling right back on you. Gravity is a universally existing force of attraction, and it acts completely at a distance. Absolutely no physical contact required.
Moving on to Section 2, the gravitational formula, the math behind the pull.
Okay, now that we've got the core concept down, let's look at the math. Because physics is really all about taking these elegant concepts and expressing them through precise mathematics. Let's break this equation down step by step, almost like we're working it out on a chalkboard together. The formula is F equals big G times little m times big M, all divided by r squared. Step 1, let's look at the top of that fraction. The force is directly proportional to the product of the two masses involved. We call those lowercase m and uppercase m. Basically, the more massive the objects, the stronger the pull. Step 2, check out the bottom. The force is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between their centers of mass. That's our r squared. This just means that as objects get further apart, the gravitational force drops off dramatically. And finally, step 3. To make all this math actually work out in our standard units, we have to multiply the whole thing by g, which is the gravitational constant.
Now, what is super interesting here is this gravitational constant itself. Through experiments, big G has been measured to be 6.674 times 10 to the negative 11th power. Look at that negative 11. That is an extraordinarily, unimaginably tiny number. Actually, let's do a quick retention check here, because this is important. If gravity is truly universal, and you're attracting every single object around you, why don't you feel the gravitational pull of, say, a nearby skyscraper or a massive mountain? Well, the answer is sitting right here in this tiny constant. It turns out gravity is actually the weakest of the four fundamental forces in nature.
Let's make this a bit more concrete with a practical example. Imagine two cars, each weighing 1,000 kilograms, parked exactly 1 meter apart. If we take those numbers and plug them into our formula, the gravitational attraction between these two heavy objects comes out to a measly 6.674 times 10 to the negative 11th newtons. That is literally less than the weight of a single speck of dust. So, on a human scale, the gravitational force between everyday objects is completely imperceptible. The only reason you and I feel Earth's gravity is because our planet has a colossal mass of roughly 6 times 10 to the 24th kilograms. You really need that astronomical mass to get any kind of noticeable force.
Now, before we scale things up, I want to tackle a really common point of student confusion. The misconception is that a much heavier object, like the Earth, exerts a stronger gravitational pull on a lighter object, like our apple, than the apple exerts on the Earth. But here is the fact. The magnitude of the gravitational force on each object is exactly the same. This is a brilliant illustration of Newton's third law of symmetry and forces. The Earth pulls the apple down with a certain force, and the apple pulls the Earth up with that exact same amount of force. The only difference is that the apple has a tiny mass, so it accelerates incredibly fast. Meanwhile, the Earth's massive inertia means its acceleration toward the apple is, well, practically zero.
All right, Section 3. Orbits and centripetal force, falling without hitting the ground.
Let's scale this up to the solar system. I've got a classic question for you. If the Earth's gravity is pulling on the moon, and, as we literally just learned, the moon is pulling right back on the Earth with the exact same force, why doesn't the Earth just move toward the moon and crash right into it?
Well, the answer all comes down to the center of mass. To simplify complex physics problems, we usually treat a large body as if all its mass is perfectly concentrated at one specific point right in its center. Because the Earth and the Moon are pulling on each other, the Earth actually does move. It doesn't just sit perfectly stationary in space. Instead, both the Earth and the Moon are rotating around a shared, common center of mass. But because the Earth is so incredibly massive compared to the Moon, this shared center point isn't just floating halfway between them. It's actually located about 1,700 kilometers below the surface of the Earth itself. So the Earth essentially just wobbles in a tight little circle around this subterranean point, while the Moon makes its huge sweeping orbit all around us.
Moving to Section 4, the physics of tides, the Moon's earthly impact. Now let's bring this concept back down to real life right here on Earth. Even though we don't physically feel that orbital wobble I just talked about, we can absolutely observe the Moon's gravitational pull in action every single day just by looking at the oceans. Because water flows so easily, the Moon's gravity actually pulls the ocean water towards it. This creates a massive tidal bulge on the side of the Earth that's facing the Moon. And interestingly enough, there's also a bulge on the far side of the planet because the solid Earth itself is being pulled slightly away from the water on that opposite side. The Sun plays a role here too, having about half the tidal effect of the Moon. When the Sun, Moon, and Earth are perfectly lined up, their gravitational forces team up to give us the highest tides, which we call spring tides. But when the Sun sits at a 90-degree angle to the Earth-Moon system, those forces kind of fight each other and cancel out a bit, giving us the lowest high tides, known as neap tides.
But here is the really crucial point. Tidal forces aren't just about ocean water. The absolute most extreme tides in the universe happen out near black holes. Black holes can pack a mass greater than our entire Sun into a diameter of just a few kilometers. The gravitational variation near them is so intensely steep that if a normal star wanders too close, the tidal forces can literally rip the star apart. It pulls matter right off of the companion star in this massive, superheated, dazzling display. So you see, gravity might have a simple formula, but it is overwhelmingly powerful in its extremes.
Which brings us to Section 5, the weightlessness myth, the reality of microgravity.
Let's shift our focus to human spaceflight for a minute. We've all seen those amazing videos of astronauts floating around the International Space Station, doing flips, catching floating drops of water in midair. And this brings us right to one of the biggest misunderstandings in all of physics. Let's bust a very persistent myth right now. The myth is that there is zero gravity in space, and that simply being far from Earth makes astronauts float. The absolute fact is this: there is no such thing as zero gravity in Earth orbit. In fact, at the altitude of the space station, Earth's gravity is still about 90% as strong as it is right here on the surface. So why are they floating? The astronauts are actually in continuous free fall. Because they are moving sideways so unbelievably fast, as they fall toward Earth, the planet literally curves away beneath them at the exact same rate. They are constantly, endlessly falling, but they never hit the ground. And that is what creates the perfect illusion of weightlessness.
Let's use a real-life analogy to really lock this concept in. Imagine you're standing in an elevator and suddenly the cable snaps. As the elevator plummets down the shaft, you are falling at the exact same rate as the elevator car around you. If you were holding your phone and let go, it wouldn't drop to the floor. It would just hover right there in front of you. Why? Because you, the phone, and the floor are all accelerating downward together. For those terrifying few seconds, you would absolutely experience weightlessness. That is exactly the same physics happening to astronauts in orbit, just perfectly, continuously sustained.
We call this unique environment microgravity. And while doing flips up there looks incredibly fun, it actually has profound physiological effects on the human body. Without constantly having to fight against gravity, an astronaut's muscles start to atrophy and they lose bone mass. Fluids inside their bodies shift upwards, which increases the pressure in their heads. Their immune systems can even become vulnerable. Fascinatingly, experiments show that some bacteria actually grow much faster in microgravity. But hey, it's not all bad news. This lack of gravity also lets scientists grow incredibly high-quality protein and inorganic crystals in space, which is absolutely crucial for developing better medicines for us back here on Earth.
All right, before we wrap up, let's quickly summarize our key takeaways. Number 1. Gravity is a universal, attractive force that acts between all masses everywhere. Number 2. It is precisely governed by the inverse square formula, F equals big G times little m times big M divided by r squared. Number 3. This single force is responsible for everything from planetary orbits to the ocean tides. And number 4. Weightlessness in space is an illusion entirely caused by continuous freefall, not an absence of gravity.
Now, we've perfectly described gravity using classical physics today, but I want to leave you with a provocative thought. Albert Einstein later came along and completely revolutionized our understanding with general relativity. He showed us that gravity isn't just a simple pull, but an actual bending of the very fabric of space and time. But here is the cutting edge of modern physics. If gravity bends space and time on a massive cosmic scale, what on earth happens to it when we zoom all the way down to the subatomic quantum level? Well, that is one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in science today, and it's exactly what we're going to explore in our next lecture.